Welcome to As Built, the podcast about architecture firms and buildings and how both get built. I am your host, Patience Jones, and with me today is architect and founding principal of Marvel, Jonathan Marvel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Patience, and it's a pleasure to be here. Jonathan Marvel, principal of Marvel Designs. By default, because we didn't want to be Marvel Architects because we are landscape architects, we're urban designers, we're planners, we're interior designers, not just architects. So we changed our name from Marvel Architects to just plain old Marvel. But because there's another Marvel out there, we had to qualify it.
A much lesser Marvel, yes.
Yeah. So we qualified it with designs as kind of the universal word for, which originally is like the Italian based on the Latin disegni, which is to draw. So really drawing is the fundamental exercise that we all do for all of our projects is we draw together with our clients, whether our clients are communities or public buildings or the island of government of Puerto Rico or the city of New York. Anyway, very nice to be here and let's have fun on this because I really enjoy sharing what I do because I have so much fun doing it.
That is so good to hear. And it's one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you and have other people be able to hear what you have to share. So Marvel Designs was founded about 10 years ago. Why did you decide to start your own firm instead of going to work for someone else?
That's the question that everybody on the planet has to decide at some point in their lives. Should I go on my own, which is a big unknown, or do I go work for somebody else and things are taken care of and I get to focus on what I want to do and someone else will handle all the administrative nightmares and bureaucracy. But you give up a certain amount of freedom and independence. And I think it was a very natural decision for me to go on my own. I come from a family of architects. My mother's a planner. My grandfather was an architect. My father was an architect. My brother's an architect. So I had a sense, and everybody went on their own at some point. And so I said, okay, I didn't really have a choice. I had to go on my own, but I was given a choice. It was a very large firm offered me a job they said, this is very early on in my practice, right after I got my license. A very large international firm approached me and said, you could be designing 30-story buildings tomorrow as the design partner of this company, and we'd be happy to have you on board. And I said, well, let me think about that. Because the other choice is they reminded me, well, is if you go on your own, you'll be doing kitchens and bathrooms for the first 5 years. And maybe you get to design a restaurant. Maybe you get to do somebody's office, but figure 5 years of kitchens and bathrooms before you really do anything. So I took the risk. And in fact, my first job on my own was bathrooms, but it happened to be for a museum in New York City, right on Museum Mile, El Museo del Barrio. And I was the Puerto Rican Museum, and I won a competition to design their galleries, which included bathrooms. So indeed, they were right. I was designing bathrooms.
But little did they know the caliber of bathroom you're designing.
One bathroom led to another. In fact, our first big job was from we were renovating the bathrooms for Pratt Institute's architecture building in Brooklyn. And the building, the central wing, had a big fire, burned the building down to the ground. But because we had an application and a file open at the Department of Buildings renovating the bathrooms, they turned our contract into a multi-million-dollar rebuild the architecture school.
Oh my God.
One bathroom can lead to something else. One door can open up another very quickly. If you have the faith and you have trust in what you do and you have fun doing it. I think the point is you have to really have fun doing it. You have to love doing it.
So how has your firm grown over the past decade now?
It has grown like a family grows. So you have children, then you have grandchildren, then you have, and then you have aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody. I think we the reason why I use the family analogy about growing is that, well, we have grown considerably in 10 years. We still operate the firm, the design practice operates like a family. In other words, we all work together, play together, eat together. We've grown in such a way that still keeps the energy and the collaboration as our number one goal. And because we realized early on that if you're having fun working at Marvel, you will be at the top of your game, and the projects will benefit, the city benefits, the client benefits. And so we try to make this a place where everybody's heard, everybody has a voice equal to everybody. I'm the principal, but listen, when we have our pinups, everybody pins up and talks and we collaborate. And I think that's the magic to growth, is that if it's kept collaborative, it's the dynamic of individuals that makes it an interesting practice to be part of.
That's a great segue into my next question, which is the firm's commitment to design for all is very evident in both the variety of project types and the geographic locations of the projects. Can you talk a little bit more about how that ethos influences both the projects that you choose to do and how the firm works?
And so the ethos of it's actually a curse. The ethos of having variety is, which is the spice of life. It's the best economic strategy, because if you have a variety of different building types, and the economy goes down in any one sector, you're not going to suffer too badly. You'll suffer, but you won't go down entirely. If you just simply worked on office buildings in today's economy, you'd be out of work.
Yeah.
So our need for variety, which really comes from perhaps my desire to have a constant stream of interesting issues and interesting problems to solve, and interesting clients to work with. I need it for myself to have that variety. It's just the way my brain is structured. And I think that it's allowed me to have a variety of partners. We're now a partnership of 12 between New York and San Juan and Virginia and Barcelona. And the partnership allows personal, professional growth for the partners to be the team leaders within their practices and their professions and their communities, all within this ethos of variety, but also of collaboration. And I think that the ethos of variety in project types, and also goes out to the variety of disciplines that work together. So we have architecture and landscape architecture. Those are obvious. Urban design and planning go hand in hand, and interior design, product design, graphic design, all bundled together, allow our clients to benefit from having this comprehensive, holistic approach. And that then in turn goes back to our team, how we team and how we work together as an office. We can have somebody from Barcelona, San Juan, Richmond, and New York all working on the same project, because we're all working digitally, from not because of COVID, but because our New York San Juan dialogue was already started happening in 2015. And that digital world in which we can design and work together is wonderful, because you get the opportunity to have talent come to the practice, talent from Barcelona, Richmond, San Juan, New York. It becomes a kind of an endless source of wonderful people that can work together. And I remind everybody on listening, that you're only as good as the people that are working with you. And so the tide rises with all the boats together. And so everybody at Marvel is valuable and is valued. And the talent pool that we want to bring in needs to cover a lot of ground. And so we do see strengths from the Barcelona team, are very facile with I would say, the craft of detailing and a real sensibility about an aesthetic part of the space that we design has a look and feel to it. And Barcelona brings a kind of a European vision to an elegance and its kind of timelessness. I think the Richmond team brings a sense of say, the strengths of some of our team members in Richmond happen to be in public spaces. There's the Richmond as a city, one of the oldest cities in the United States, has a layered tradition of spaces and streets and parks and uses of outdoor space that is wonderful to bring to the equation. I think the Puerto Rico office has that outlook about culture and living outdoors in the tropics is where you spend half your time. The outdoor, indoor, outdoor backing and forthing in Puerto Rico is very blurred. That boundary becomes invisible between indoors and outdoors. And so the buildings become permeable. Outdoor spaces can feed the way you feel. And as a human being, you feel good when you're in the shade, for example. You think about the human body and the needs of the human body, comfort zones, outdoors, that translates directly into comfort zones. Indoors, we have this mantra called the best seat in the house. We've all heard about, what's the best seat in the house? Whether when you go to a movie or a theater, or you go to a restaurant, or you go to a public space, everybody gravitates towards in what their body and mind calls the best seat in the house. So your version of the best seat in the house could be very different from mine, but there's still, for you, that's the best seat in the house. Anyway, that's just a long way of saying the Puerto Rican team understands very much about the comfort zones of indoors and outdoors. And then, of course, the New York team, which is the New York City dynamic. This is a city of experimentation, innovation. This is the city that never sleeps. This is the city that's always looking for a new way to do something. And I think that idea of opportunity, we know that if you want to try to do something with your life and you move to New York, you can do it if you work hard enough. At least that's been the tradition of New York City, offering a chance for people to come here and realize their dreams. And I think that's a real motivator emotionally for the design community. This is a chance to realize your dream as a designer. And then New York is a great platform. I'm just covering in general the geography and how that can all be combined in a wonderful way.
I love that. Each project that I have seen come out of your office, whether it's affordable housing or it's a commercial space, every project seems like it is the most important project that your firm has done. And I'm wondering how you're able to achieve that level of excellence across so many verticals, so many offices, so many geographies.
It's no secret that you empower people with the ability to make decisions and to be part of a team. They're committed. And if you listen to everybody's opinion, whether it turns into the design is really irrelevant. I think that the point is that the sense of quality and the pursuit of excellence is because of a commitment to doing the right thing for our community, whether it's our New York City is a community, or whether it's a neighborhood, or whether it's a not-for-profit or an affordable housing project. There's a commitment to quality. There's a commitment to making sure that that on the client side and all the stakeholders that have investment in a building or in a public space, that everybody gets listened to, becomes part of the seed idea of how the program is structured, and to ultimately to pull off a project, which is generally like a 5-year commitment. On average, projects can be fastest project ever is 2 to 3 years, and some projects go on for 10 years. But the hope is that when you start a project at Marble, you can be on that project for the duration of the project, and you can see it from beginning to end. And that's a real reward for a young designer who's learning the ropes. And by the time the building is built, they've seen the whole thing happen from drawings to through construction. Now you've really created an education for that young person. And again, we're only as good as the people that we're working with on our projects. So we're really in the education business, taking young architects and young designers and young planners and giving them experience and opportunities so that they can grow professionally.
The firm's work has created new possibilities both for building and for living. And an example of this, just one example, would be the off-grid single-family homes in Puerto Rico that Marvel designed for the ACACIA network. While those were designed as prototypes, they were also the only homes in which electricity remained on during Hurricane Fiona. When you can see and design possibilities for such tremendous positive change, is it difficult to temper that with the realities of how slow-moving and bureaucratic the implementation of those ideas can be?
Yes. How's that for an answer? And thank you for bringing up that example of the Acacia homes in Caguas, Puerto Rico. 2 homes freestanding side by side with their yards. These are three bedroom, 1.5 bathroom with a kitchen, living, dining, and a carport that could be expanded into a 4th bedroom. These were designed as prototypes, and they were built on spec, funded by ACACIA. The municipality of Caguas gave the land donated the land in the hopes that people would see these homes as a future example of how to live off the grid, how to be resilient, how to survive the ongoing hurricane events that are only becoming more frequent and more powerful all over the Gulf of Mexico and up the eastern seaboard. And so ACACIA is New York and Puerto Rico based, and they went out on a limb to do this on behalf of Puerto Rico. So there was a larger mission at work. So going back to your question, I'm sort of building up the notion that it takes a lot of grit to see a project through, and of all the approvals that are needed and all of the budgetary issues that projects have to go through and design, and then finally in the construction, which is very complex and takes time. But I think the driver for a designer is the hope of being able to make a difference and the hope of being able to make your contribution to the planet. And those 2 homes in Puerto Rico are symbolic of, I think, of a very human need to want to make the world a better place. And with housing being the number one issue for all of humanity, and resiliency. So take the 100,000 immigrants that have just landed in New York City metropolitan area in the past year. How to give them housing is a fundamental human right in New York City. And so everybody gets to have a roof over their head. That's a huge commitment that New York City has made to the people that are coming here. And ultimately the city benefits because of that right. But the driver is the hope that we can make the world a better place for everybody. And housing is the fundamental ground zero for humanity. Everybody needs a home. And if you had a great home in Venezuela and a job there and schools for your children, you wouldn't be leaving Venezuela to come to the United States. And I think part of our desire is, let's use Puerto Rico, which is really a bridge to Latin America. So the United States has traditionally used places like Puerto Rico and also the Philippines with respect to Asia, but Puerto Rico has been the bridge for the United States to the rest of Latin America because it straddles a Latin country and it's part of the United States as a territory. And maybe this is a way to also have a role model for other parts of Latin America to see this is a possibility as well.
How do you approach collaboration with developers who sometimes may have different mindsets about why one's doing a project?
I think that it's a kind of a dating process that happens. So you don't end up with a team with opposite views on the topic of a developer will find a compatible design firm to work with them. And that vetting process happens in over a long period of time or a short period of time, but eventually you realize that you each have your own interests in mind in working together, and a developer wants the building to be successful and therefore is going to find an architect that is like-minded. So I'm just helping this issue out a little bit by saying that there's a natural coming together about an aesthetic, about a way of working, about the sense of schedule, about compensation, because we all have to get paid and developers have to finance their projects. So there's always this dance about financing your project and paying your team. And so there needs to be a lot of patience when working with developers. I think that we do have an incredible amount of patience to see the project through, which is sometimes it's smooth sailing. Sometimes there's some pauses in the process or in financing or getting approvals from city agencies. But I think in the end, the chemistry happens early on, but it's going to work out the minute you start talking to a developer about the project and they can get a sense that you get it, and there's a lot of in that kind of dating process, a lot goes on that is sort of intuitive. And so do you often disagree on stuff? Sure you do. And part of our job is essentially to allow our clients to have a hand at the design table. We'll do the drawings, but they can provide us with all sorts of great ideas and needs. And then our job as designers is to give the entire team to look at options. And then usually we start out with at least 5 options, but you try to get down to 3, the two extremes. One could be more expensive, one could be more affordable, and then one down the middle. And you could use those, the kind of 2 extremes. One's taller, one's shorter, one's in the middle. So we generally try to end up with 3 options and then work together on choosing one. So it's always a kind of the magical decision-making process is really fundamentally the role of the designer is to help guide that decision-making process. So you never look back and you never say, oh, I wish we'd done that, because you've covered that ground early on.
So you talked a little bit about Barcelona office, which is a new development. That is very
exciting.
Yeah,
Very
congratulations.
Thank you. I worked in Barcelona when I was a junior designer in an international office on the museum there, and back in 1990, and it was built in 1992. And being Puerto Rican, of course, and Spain is the mother country before the United States, and so this affinity to Spain, this even stronger affinity to Barcelona, which is also coincides with where my family is originally from. On my father's side, they left Sitges back in the 19th century to go to Cuba, to New York, to San Juan. I have family ties to Barcelona as well.
How cool.
And it's just wonderful to be able to have now the team there.
How do you manage to keep the firm's kind of culture and communications going with different offices in different time zones?
Nobody gets a full night's sleep, I would say, in that respect. You're always like waking up at odd hours to talk. But I think that the spirit of collaboration helps bring people together. Certainly, we have access to wonderful software platforms that use the cloud to post drawings and post ideas so everybody can see them in real time. And whether you're in one place or the other doesn't really matter anymore. And Spanish and English are now both languages we go back and forth between them, although everybody seems to want to practice their English in San Juan and Barcelona. And it helps to be bilingual, of course, in the Marvel office. And we're very proud to say that we are the largest Latino employer of architects and designers in New York City. And we are wonderfully adept at communicating in in those two languages and we want to be a platform for Latino designers. And I'm just mentoring right now a high school kid who lives in Florida, and and I'm saying, you got to study architecture. The University of Florida, Gainesville is a fantastic place. I'll help you apply this fall. And I think we're always in the process of trying to mentor young designers to become architects and young people to get interested in design, because it's such a fun profession to be part of.
Jonathan, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Patience. This has been a lot of fun. We've talked a lot, and sorry, I meandered a little bit.
Oh my goodness, no.
I couldn't help myself. Thank you so much
for
doing what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been As Built. I am Patience Jones. Until next time.